The white coat Dr. Alan Wright wore had old coffee stains on the right sleeve. He hadn't gone home in 3 days. A small lamp lit the papers spread across his desk while the rest of the lab sat in darkness. Everyone else had gone home hours ago, but Alan couldn't stop. He was too close. The year was 2178, and humanity had spread throughout the solar system. Mars colonies thrived, and mining operations dotted the asteroid belt. Yet for all their progress, humans still faced the same old problems: limited space, limited resources, and the constant need for more. Alan rubbed his tired eyes and looked at the simulation results again. The numbers matched his predictions. According to every calculation, it should work. A pocket dimension, a self-contained space existing alongside normal reality but following different rules, could actually be created. Not just in theory, but in practice. His computer chimed with an incoming call. Alan sighed and accepted it. "Do you know what time it is?" Samantha Kelly's face appeared on screen, her curly hair wild as if she'd just woken up. "Sorry, Sam. I think I've solved the containment field problem." Samantha's eyes widened. "Show me." Alan sent the data. Samantha was the best quantum engineer he'd ever worked with. If anyone could spot a flaw in his work, it would be her. Minutes passed in silence as she reviewed his calculations. Finally, she looked up. This could actually work, Alan. How did you stabilize the dimensional boundary?" "I didn't try to make it perfectly stable. That's where everyone gets stuck. I designed it to be constantly shifting but in a predictable pattern, like a heartbeat." Samantha's expression changed to excitement. "I'm coming in. Call George too." 2 hours later, the lab hummed with energy as 3 scientists huddled around a small device on a table. George Martinez adjusted the containment field controls with steady hands. "Power levels holding at 80%, he said. "Dimensional fold initiating in 3, 2, 1. A soft hum filled the room. The air above the device shimmered like heat waves over hot pavement. Then slowly a small tear appeared. Not in the air exactly, but in reality itself. It widened to the size of a baseball, edges pulsing exactly as Alan had predicted. "My God," whispered Samantha. "You did it." Alan passed his hand over a scanner. The tear widened further. He picked up a small rubber ball from his desk and gently tossed it toward the opening. The ball disappeared into the shimmer without a sound. "Containment field is stable," said George, checking his monitors. "Internal environment readings are coming through clearly." Alan nodded and moved his hand over the scanner again. The tear widened to the size of a basketball. They could now see inside. A small empty space that seemed to stretch farther than it should. "Retrieval test," Alan said. He moved his hand in a pulling motion over the scanner. The rubber ball rolled out of the tear and bounced across the lab table. The 3 scientists stared at each other in amazement. After decades of theoretical work, false starts, and failures, they had done it. They had created a working pocket dimension. "We need to tell Olivia," Samantha said, referring to their government liaison. Alan nodded. "In the morning. Tonight, let's run more tests." None of them noticed the small device hidden in the lab's ventilation system. The device recorded everything and sent the data across vast distances to a receiver far beyond Earth's solar system. On the edge of the Orion Arm, a massive space station hung in orbit around a red giant star. The station housed the central meeting chambers of the Galactic Council, a coalition of 27 spacefaring species that had maintained peace and order across this section of the galaxy for over 12,000 years. In a small monitoring room, a blue-skinned alien with 4 arms and large oval eyes studied the transmission from Earth with growing concern. Kutnar had been tasked with monitoring the development of the human species since they first achieved spaceflight. Humans were still considered primitives by Council standards, interesting but not particularly concerning, until now. Kutnar's upper hands moved rapidly across the holographic display, verifying the data again. There could be no mistake. The humans had achieved stable pocket dimension technology, something that had taken most Council species thousands of years to master. The implications were troubling. Kutnar sent an urgent message to the High Council. This development required immediate attention. Back on Earth, word of the breakthrough spread quickly through government channels. By morning, the lab buzzed with activity. Olivia Barnes arrived early, her usually calm face showing rare excitement. "Do you understand what you've achieved?" she asked Alan as they watched technicians set up more monitoring equipment around the now enlarged dimensional tear. "A breakthrough in dimensional physics," Alan said. Olivia shook her head. "No, much more than that. You've solved humanity's biggest limitations. Think about it. Pocket dimensions for waste storage, for housing, for farmland. We could fit the resources of an entire planet in a space the size of this lab." Alan hadn't thought that far ahead. He'd been focused on the science, not the applications. "We need to scale it up," Samantha said, joining them. "See how large we can make the pocket before stability becomes an issue." George called out from his monitoring station. "Energy consumption is minimal once the pocket is established. It's almost self-sustaining." The team worked through the day, expanding the pocket dimension gradually. By evening, they had created a space large enough for a person to enter, though no one had volunteered yet. As Alan studied the readings from inside the pocket, a strange feeling came over him, like they were being watched. He glanced around the lab but saw only his colleagues working at their stations. "Everything okay?" Samantha asked, noticing his distraction. "Fine," he said. "Just tired, I guess." On the edge of the solar system, a small council observation vessel dropped out of faster-than-light travel. On board, Kistnar prepared for a closer look at the human breakthrough. The council needed confirmation before deciding how to respond to this unexpected development. As the alien ship approached Earth using stealth technology, Alan Wright and his team continued their work, unaware that their breakthrough had just placed humanity at the center of a galactic crisis, one that would soon force them to fight for their very existence against powers they never knew existed. 2 weeks after the breakthrough, Alan watched as Samantha carefully stepped through the dimensional opening. They had expanded the pocket dimension to the size of a small room and conducted numerous tests with equipment and small animals. Now, it was time for a human to enter. "How does it feel?" Alan asked through the communication system. Samantha looked around the empty white space. "Weird. The air feels thicker somehow. But I can breathe fine." She walked around, her footsteps making no sound. "It's bigger in here than it looks from outside." This was one of the most fascinating aspects of their discovery. The pocket dimension followed different spatial rules. What appeared to be a 10-foot cube from the outside contained nearly 50 times that volume inside. "Time check," George called out. "Starting timer now," Samantha said, activating her wrist device. They needed to confirm that time flowed at the same rate inside the pocket dimension. Previous tests with recording devices suggested it did, but they needed to be certain before proceeding with larger experiments. Outside the lab, Olivia Barnes was in a meeting with government officials. Word of the breakthrough had reached the highest levels, and everyone wanted a piece of the technology. Military leaders saw weapons potential. Housing departments imagined solving overcrowding. Energy companies dreamed of power generation in custom environments. None of them knew they were being watched. In the Galactic Council's Grand Chamber, High Counselor Vexus Toral slammed a long, six-fingered hand on the table. The ancient being had led the council for over 300 years and had never faced a situation quite like this. "The report is confirmed," Vexus Toral said to the assembled representatives. "The humans have achieved stable pocket dimension technology." Worried, murmurs filled the massive hall. The council members came from 27 different species, some humanoid, others utterly alien in form. All shared one thing: concern about humanity's rapid technological advancement. "How is this possible?" asked a reptilian delegate. "Their civilization is barely 2 centuries into spaceflight. Pocket dimension mastery should be millennia beyond their reach." Kistnar stepped forward, forearms folded respectfully. "It appears humans possess unusual cognitive patterns that give them advantages in dimensional mathematics. They intuitively grasp concepts that other species require centuries to understand. This cannot be allowed to continue," Vex Toral declared. "We all know the dangers. the Zabraxian extinction, the Polaris collapse, the shattering of the Centauri systems, all caused by reckless use of dimensional technology. Another delegate, a crystalline being named Jintok, spoke more calmly. Perhaps we should open diplomatic channels. The humans have shown themselves to be reasonable in previous encounters. Reasonable? Vextoral laughed harshly. They are chaotic, unpredictable. Their history is filled with warfare, and now they possess technology that could tear holes in the fabric of reality. After hours of debate, the decision was made. A delegation would be sent to Earth with a simple message: surrender all pocket dimension research and accept counsel, oversight, or face consequences. Ambassador Elizabeth Warren was enjoying her morning coffee in her office at the Mars colony when the call came in. As the senior human diplomat for off-world affairs, she expected routine updates from the various human settlements throughout the solar system. Instead, her superior's grave face filled the screen. Elizabeth, you need to return to Earth immediately. First contact situation. Her coffee mug nearly slipped from her fingers. First contact? With whom? Something called the Galactic Council. Their ships just appeared in orbit. They're requesting meetings with Earth's leadership about— He paused, checking his notes. Dimensional technology research. Elizabeth felt a chill. How do they even know about that? The Pocket Dimension project is classified. That's what we'd all like to know. Within hours, Elizabeth was on a fast transport heading back to Earth. At the Arizona Research Facility, Commander Jason Grant arrived with 24 armed soldiers. Alan and his team were ordered to secure all research and prepare for evacuation. What's going on? Alan demanded as soldiers began disconnecting equipment. Security breach of the highest order, Commander Grant said tersely. We've got visitors from out of town, way out of town. Before Alan could ask more questions, alarms blared throughout the facility. On security monitors, they watched as a sleek silver craft descended from the sky, landing in the desert near the research center. They requested this specific location, Commander Grant said. They know exactly what you've been doing here. Across the globe, CIA analyst Kevin Hudson worked frantically to piece together what was happening. Reports flooded in of strange ships appearing in orbit. Communication satellites picked up transmissions in unknown languages. And somehow, all of this seemed centered on a previously obscure research facility in Arizona. Kevin had been tracking unusual energy readings from that facility for months, but his reports had been ignored. Now, as he rushed to brief his superiors, he wondered if it was already too late. The meeting room was tense. On one side sat Earth's hastily assembled delegation, high-ranking government officials, military leaders, and scientific advisors, including Alan Wright. On the other side sat 5 beings so alien in appearance that Alan found it hard not to stare. The one called Vex Toral spoke first, its voice translated by a small, floating device. Your species has developed technology beyond your understanding. Pocket dimension manipulation threatens the stability of space-time itself. Alan leaned forward. With all due respect, we understand the principles quite well. Our containment protocols are insufficient. Vexitoral interrupted. 3 civilizations have destroyed themselves with similar technology. One nearly took an entire sector of the galaxy with it. Elizabeth Warren, who had arrived just minutes before the meeting, spoke carefully. What exactly are you proposing? The Galactic Council oversees technological development throughout this sector of the galaxy for the safety of all, including humanity. We require you to immediately cease all dimensional research and surrender existing technology for containment. The human delegates exchanged looks of disbelief. And if we refuse? Asked one of the military leaders. Vextoral's large eyes narrowed. Then we will have no choice but to establish a quarantine field around your solar system. Your species would be contained until you prove responsible enough for interstellar society. As the implications sank in, Alan realized with growing dread that humanity's greatest scientific achievement had just become its greatest threat. But something else bothered him. How had these aliens monitored their work so closely without detection? And more importantly, did they truly understand just how far human ingenuity had already taken the technology? Outside the meeting room, in a secured lab across the country, Samantha Kelly continued her work on the next generation of pocket dimension technology, developments that would soon change everything the Galactic Council thought they knew about human capabilities. While diplomats argued in meeting rooms, Dr. Patricia Wu worked in a hidden facility beneath the Rocky Mountains. She had never met Alan Wright or his team, but their research had been shared with her group through secure channels. As a leading neurologist, her job was to understand why humans could grasp pocket dimension concepts so easily. Patricia studied the brain scans on her screen. 20 test subjects had been asked to solve complex dimensional problems, while their brain activity was monitored. The results were fascinating. "Look at this," she said to her assistant. "The spatial reasoning centers connect directly to the creative problem-solving areas. It's a pattern I've never seen in any other species." Her assistant nodded. According to the Council biological data they shared, most species process dimensional math in completely separate brain regions, which means they approach it purely as mathematics, Patricia said. But humans see it as a spatial puzzle. We can literally imagine the folding of dimensions in our minds. This discovery explained why humans had achieved in decades what took other species millennia. It wasn't just intelligence, it was a fundamentally different way of thinking. On the other side of the country, Kyle Rodriguez led a team of military engineers in adapting the pocket dimension technology for defense purposes. The work was now spread across dozens of secret facilities to prevent the Council from tracking all research. "The prototype shield is ready for testing," a technician reported. Kyle nodded and gave the signal. A small drone fired an energy beam at a metal plate. As the beam approached, a shimmer appeared in front of the plate, a micro-pocket dimension that absorbed the energy completely. "Perfect," Kyle said. "No deflection, no radiation backscatter. The attack energy is simply moved elsewhere." His second-in-command looked concerned. "The Council delegates will see this as exactly what they feared: weaponization of the technology." Kyle's face hardened. "They came here threatening to imprison our entire species in our own solar system. We need every advantage we can get." In Washington, the negotiations were not going well. Elizabeth Warren struggled to keep her frustration in check as Vexatoril outlined the oversight conditions. All research facilities would be monitored by Council observers, the alien delegate explained. Any new applications would require approval from the Technology Ethics Committee, which could take decades to grant, Elizabeth noted. "Safety cannot be rushed," Vextoril replied. Alan Wright, who had been invited as a scientific consultant, finally spoke up. "You keep talking about dangers, but you haven't been specific. What exactly are you afraid humans will do with this technology?" Kazitnar, the blue-skinned observer, answered. "History has shown 3 primary dangers. First, dimensional weapons that can create localized black holes. Second, reality fractures that spread unpredictably. Third, and most concerning, cascade, failures where dimensions collapse into each other. All of which requires misuse of the technology," Alan pointed out. "Misuse or accident," Vextoril countered. "The Zabraxians destroyed themselves through a simple calculation error. An entire civilization gone in moments." The human delegates exchanged glances. The stakes were becoming clearer and higher. Emma Clark stood in the middle of an enormous, empty space that technically occupied no more than a cubic meter in normal reality. As an architect specializing in pocket dimension habitats, she was creating something revolutionary. "Add the environmental controls here," she instructed her team, pointing to a wall that didn't technically exist in normal space. "Water recycling systems in this section. Each living unit needs to be self-sustaining." The pocket dimension habitat was designed to house 10,000 people comfortably. It would be one of dozens being prepared around the world, emergency shelters in case the negotiations failed. "Time compression fields are stable," reported a technician. "We can maintain a 2:1 ratio without affecting structural integrity." This was another breakthrough. By manipulating how time flowed in the pocket dimension, they could have plants grow twice as fast or construction work completed in half the time. Emma smiled. The Council had no idea how far human innovation had already taken the technology. They were thinking in terms of simple storage spaces while humans were creating entire self-contained worlds. William Fisher piloted the experimental craft into position. As head of the transportation division, he was testing the most ambitious application yet, using pocket dimensions as shortcuts through normal space. Distance to target, 500,000 kilometers, his co-pilot announced. William activated the dimensional fold generator. The space in front of the ship shimmered and opened. Entering dimensional corridor in 3, 2, 1. The ship passed through the opening and immediately emerged on the other side of the moon. A journey that should have taken hours was completed, in seconds. Transit successful, William said, unable to hide his excitement. No navigation drift, no energy fluctuations. The applications were enormous. Instant transport anywhere on Earth. Quick trips throughout the solar system, and potentially, if scaled up, travel between stars. In orbit around Earth, the Council mothership received disturbing reports from their intelligence networks. Despite the ongoing negotiations, human pocket dimension research hadn't slowed, it had accelerated. They're using our distraction to advance their technology, Vexitoral fumed, addressing the ship's commander. Multiple facilities are working simultaneously. Should we terminate negotiations? Asked the commander. Vexitoral considered this. No, but prepare the fleet. If the humans will not voluntarily submit to oversight, we may need to demonstrate our resolve. The other council members have not authorized military action, Kazitnar reminded them. They will when they see how quickly humans are advancing, Vexitoral replied. Our very way of life is threatened by this technology in the hands of such an unpredictable species. Kevin Hudson compiled his intelligence report with a growing sense of awe. As a CIA analyst, he had access to information from multiple sources. The picture coming together was remarkable. In just 3 weeks since first contact, humans had created self-sustaining habitats in pocket dimensions, developed defensive applications that could neutralize energy weapons, achieved point-to-point transportation using dimensional shortcuts, discovered how to manipulate time flow within pocket dimensions. His superior read the report in silence, then looked up. They don't know any of this, do they? The council delegates? Kevin shook his head. They know we're continuing research, but not the extent of our progress. According to our sources, they think we're decades from practical applications. They have no idea we've already mastered the basic technology, which gives us leverage, his superior said, but also puts us in danger. If they realize how far we've come, they might decide negotiation is pointless. As he spoke, sensors around Earth detected multiple ships emerging from faster-than-light travel. The Council was bringing reinforcements, a clear sign they were preparing for more than just talks. The quiet scientific breakthrough had become a silent arms race, with humanity's future hanging in the balance, and neither side truly understood what the other was capable of. The emergency meeting of Earth's Defense Council began at midnight. Satellite images displayed on the main screen showed 27 alien vessels now in orbit. The Council fleet had more than tripled in size over the past 12 hours. They're positioning for a strike, Admiral Susan Miller said, pointing to the formation. Classic encirclement pattern. The president looked grim. Are we certain? This could still be a show of force to pressure negotiations. Our sources inside their fleet confirm it, Kevin Hudson said. The hardliners led by Vexitoral have convinced enough council members that humanity represents an immediate threat. They plan to target our research facilities first, then demand surrender. Alan Wright, who had been called in as a scientific advisor, shook his head in frustration. We've tried to explain that our applications are peaceful. They won't listen. Because peace isn't their concern, Elizabeth Warren said. Control is. Our technology is advancing too quickly for them to manage. The president surveyed the room. What are our options? Admiral Miller spoke first. Conventional defenses won't stop their weapons. Their technology is centuries ahead of our military capabilities. Except in one area, Alan said quietly. All eyes turned to him. The pocket. Dimension technology. We've been developing defensive applications across several facilities. The president nodded. Implement everything we have. And activate the evacuation protocols. If they target civilian areas, I want our people safe. As the meeting ended, Alan received an urgent message on his secure device. The council ships were moving into attack position. They had hours, not days. In a research facility in Colorado, Ryan Cooper worked frantically to save what he could. Warning sirens blared as scientists grabbed crucial equipment and data storage devices. Enemy ships approaching, announced a mechanical voice over the speakers. Evacuation protocol in effect. All personnel proceed to shelter areas. Ryan disconnected the prototype dimensional shield generator and loaded it onto a cart. This device was too important to lose. As he rushed down the hallway toward the evacuation point, the first explosions rocked the building. High above, Council ships fired precision energy weapons targeted at facilities identified by their intelligence as housing dimensional research. The beams cut through Earth's atmosphere, striking with devastating accuracy. Ryan felt the building shake as another explosion hit closer. The ceiling began to collapse. He dove forward, shielding the prototype with his body as debris fell around him. In Washington, Edward Johnson argued desperately with the council representatives who remained on Earth. This attack is unprovoked, the presidential science advisor insisted. We were still negotiating in good faith. Xetnar, who had opposed the military action, looked genuinely regretful. The decision was not unanimous, but the council determined that your rapid advancement posed too great a risk. You're making a terrible mistake, Edward said. This will only escalate the situation. As they spoke, reports came in of attacks on research facilities across North America, Europe, and Asia. Casualty numbers climbed as buildings collapsed and fires spread. Captain Nicole Davis watched the alien ship approach on her tactical display. The USS Constitution was the newest vessel in Earth's space fleet, but it was still hopelessly outmatched by the Council warships. Weapons lock detected, her tactical officer reported. They're targeting our engines. Nicole had been briefed on the experimental technology just hours earlier. Now it was time to see if it worked. Activate dimensional shift, she ordered. The officer pressed a sequence of controls. Around the ship, reality seemed to flicker. The Constitution partially phased into a pocket dimension, becoming semi-transparent from the outside. On the bridge of the Council warship, the weapons officer stared in confusion as their target partially vanished from sensors. Firing, they announced anyway. The energy beam passed through the space where the Constitution should have been, hitting nothing but empty vacuum. Nicole allowed herself a small smile. Return fire. The Constitution's conventional weapons wouldn't normally damage the advanced shields of a Council vessel, but fired from the boundary between dimensions, they passed through the alien shields as if they weren't there. The Council ship rocked from the unexpected hit. Across Earth orbit, other human vessels began activating similar technology. What had seemed like an easy victory for the Council forces suddenly became confusing and dangerous. Vexus Toral received the reports with growing anger. How are they doing this? Our intelligence indicated they were nowhere near this level of application. The fleet commander looked worried. Human ships are using some kind of dimensional phasing. Our weapons can't get a solid lock, and their attacks are bypassing our shields. And on the surface, even worse. Our strikes hit many targets, but most buildings were empty, as if they knew we were coming. In fact, humanity had prepared well. When the attack began, emergency protocols activated worldwide. Millions of people were moved into safety pocket, dimensions that existed alongside normal space but couldn't be targeted by conventional weapons. The attacking fleet found their weapons mysteriously missing targets or firing into empty buildings. When they did hit occupied structures, damage was minimized by dimensional buffers that absorbed and redirected energy. Ryan Cooper regained consciousness under a pile of rubble. His ears rang from the explosion, and dust filled his lungs. But he was alive, and so was the prototype shield generator beside him. As he crawled free of the debris, he saw soldiers approaching. Human soldiers. They helped him to his feet. Is that the shield generator? One asked, pointing to the device. Ryan nodded, coughing. Get it to the secondary facility. Now. Within an hour, the prototype was being installed in a hidden bunker. Similar scenes played out across the globe as humans salvaged what they could from the attacked facilities and regrouped. In orbit, the Constitution and other human ships continued their surprising defense. What had begun as a devastating attack by vastly superior forces had turned into a confused battle, where the Council's technological edge was negated by humanity's novel application of pocket dimension technology. Nicole Davis received new orders from Command. All ships, execute dimensional jump to coordinates Alpha 6. The Earth vessels seemed to blink out of existence, reappearing behind the Council fleet. It wasn't true faster-than-light travel, but by using pocket dimensions as shortcuts through normal space, they achieved the same effect. They're retreating, her tactical officer announced as the Council ships began to pull back. It wasn't a victory, not yet. The Council forces still outnumbered and outgunned the human fleet. But the first attack had failed, and that fact would send shockwaves through the Galactic Council. On the Council mothership, Vex Toral stared at the battle reports in disbelief. How could humans have advanced so quickly? The implications were staggering and terrifying. If they could adapt pocket dimension technology this effectively in just weeks, what would they achieve in years? For the first time in centuries, the ancient leader felt something unfamiliar. Doubt. Perhaps this conflict could not be won through force after all. 3 days after the attack, the grand meeting hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with angry voices. Representatives from all 27 member species argued about the failed military action against Earth. "This is unprecedented," shouted a delegate from a gas giant species. "An attack without full Council approval." The humans were advancing too quickly, Vexitoral defended. "We had to act." "And how did that work out?" asked Jintok, the moderate crystalline being. "We lost 3 ships, dozens more damaged, and the humans now know we are hostile." The debate raged for hours until an aide rushed in with urgent news. "High Counselor, the humans are requesting an emergency session." "Deny it," Vexitoral said automatically. "You can't," the aide replied nervously. "They're already here." The massive doors to the chamber swung open. To everyone's shock, Dr. Alan Wright walked in, accompanied by Elizabeth Warren and a small team of human experts. Without invitation, they had somehow traveled to the Council station on the edge of the Orion Arm, a journey that should have taken months. "How did you get here?" Vexitoral demanded. Alan smiled slightly. "Dimensional shortcut. We've been mapping them for weeks." The Council chamber fell silent. The implications were staggering. If humans could travel across the galaxy this easily, what else could they do? "We come with a proposal," Elizabeth said, her voice calm but firm. "Not as supplicants, but as equals." Vexitoral seemed ready to object, but Jintok spoke first. "Let them speak. We have already seen what force accomplishes." Alan stepped forward and activated a small device. A holographic display appeared, showing a complex network of interconnected spheres. "This is our dimensional library," he explained. "A repository containing all human knowledge, backed up across multiple pocket dimensions. It cannot be destroyed. Even if Earth itself were gone, the knowledge would remain," the Council members murmured in amazement. "We're not here for revenge," Elizabeth continued. "We understand your fears. 3 civilizations destroyed themselves with this technology. But suppression isn't the answer. Cooperation is." Lisa Hernandez, a diplomat who specialized in novel governance structures, took over. "We propose a reformation of the Council itself, not as a regulatory body that restricts technology, but as a collaborative one that guides its safe development." "Impossible," Vexitoral scoffed. "Your species is too young, too reckless, and perhaps," Lisa acknowledged. "But we've achieved in months what took your civilizations millennia. Not because we're smarter, but because we think differently. Imagine what we could accomplish together." John Mitchell, the security expert on the human team, explained their safeguards. "We've developed fail-safes that prevent catastrophic dimensional collapse. Technology that automatically stabilizes reality fractures. Solutions to problems you've been struggling with for centuries. As the humans laid out their vision, the council members listened with growing interest. They described how pocket dimension technology could solve resource scarcity by creating custom environments for agriculture and manufacturing, how it could address overpopulation by expanding livable space, how it might even, with proper development, provide a solution to the eventual heat death of the universe by creating permanently sustainable pocket realities. We offer to share this freely, Alan said. All of it. But only if a new framework of cooperation replaces the old system of control. The council chamber erupted in discussion. Some species threatened war, insisting that humans needed to be contained. Others recognized the opportunity being presented. Jintalk's crystalline form glittered as they spoke. For 12,000 years we have maintained peace through control. Perhaps it is time for a new approach. Vexitoral stood, anger evident in their ancient features. This is exactly what makes humans dangerous. They've been among the stars for barely 2 centuries, and already they presume to remake our established order. An order that led you to attack us without provocation, Elizabeth reminded them. How many died in your strike against our research facilities? The room fell silent again. We stand at a crossroads, Alan said quietly. Continue down the path of conflict or build something new together. For 3 days the debate continued. The human delegation remained patient, answering questions and demonstrating the potential of their technology. Gradually, more council species began to support the human proposal. Finally, a vote was called. To Vexitoral's dismay, 17 of the 27 species voted to accept the human terms. The Galactic Council would be reformed into a new Galactic Assembly, with humanity as a founding member. Vexitoral and several allied species stormed out, threatening to form their own coalition. But the majority recognized that the galaxy had changed forever. Fighting humans would be costly and ultimately futile. Better to work with them and shape the future together. 1 month later, Alan Wright stood on the observation deck of the Dimensional Explorer, humanity's first vessel designed specifically for dimensional exploration. The ship could travel not just through normal space, but into dimensions that even the oldest council species had never dared to investigate. Pre-launch checks complete, Dr. Wright, said the ship's captain. Ready when you are. Alan took a deep breath. The events of the past months had changed everything. Humanity had gone from an isolated species confined to one solar system to a major power in galactic politics. And he had gone from an obscure physicist to the leader of humanity's most ambitious expedition. Begin dimensional fold, he ordered. The space in front of the ship shimmered and opened. Beyond lay not the familiar stars of their galaxy, but the swirling patterns of a completely different dimensional plane. As the ship moved forward into the unknown, Alan thought about the journey that had brought them here. A simple scientific breakthrough had triggered a crisis, nearly led to war, and ultimately created a new future for humans and aliens alike. The pocket dimension technology that the Council had feared would destroy them all might instead lead to a golden age of exploration and discovery. Humanity's unique way of thinking, the very trait that had alarmed the Council, was now their greatest contribution to galactic society. The ship passed through the dimensional gateway, leaving normal space behind. Ahead lay infinite possibilities, waiting to be explored by a species that had forever changed what was thought possible.